When she was 9, my daughter Kathleen asked if I had ever killed anyone. She knew about the war, and she knew I'd been a soldier. You keep writing these war stories, so I guess you must have killed someone. It was a difficult moment. But I did what seemed right, which was to say, of course not, and then take her onto my lap and hold her for a while. Someday I hope she'll ask again. But here I want to pretend she's a grown-up. I want to tell her exactly what happened, or what I remember happening, and then I want to say to her that as a little girl, she was absolutely right. This is why I keep writing war stories. In today's society, truth is the fabric of reality. But what many fail to realize is that fact is as subliminal and subjective as fiction. To one person, a truth can be a complete lie to another. Many say that live combat is one of the most terrifying experiences somebody can go through. Fear often changes memories, changing fact to fiction oftentimes without you realizing it. The Things They Carried, by Tim O'Brien. His jaw was in his throat. His upper lip and teeth were missing. His one eye was shut and the other had a golden star inside of it. His neck was open to the spinal cord and the blood there was thick and shiny and still pouring out over his shirt. This was the wound that killed him. He lay face up in the center of a trail, a slim, dead, almost dainty young man. It can be argued that war is grotesque. But in truth, war is also beauty. You hate it, yes, but your eyes love it. You see, it's like a killer forest fire or cancer under a microscope. You can't look away. Any battle or death has the aesthetic purity of absolute moral indifference. And a true war story will tell the truth about this, though sometimes the truth is ugly. The trail junction was shaded by a row of trees and a tall brush. A slim young man lay with his feet in the shade. His jaw was in his throat. His one eye was shut. The other was a star-shaped hole. The yellow part seemed to be growing wider, and the red in his eyes spreading out from the center of the star. He had been born maybe in 1946. He had been born to the village of Mai Key in the central coastline of Kwe Ngai province, where his parents had farmed and his family had lived for generations. He would have been taught that to defend his homeland was the highest honor and the only duty he truly had. If there was no choice for him, yet secretly, he was terrified. You see, he was not a fighter. He was a small man. He had an ill body and a small frame. His eyebrows were thin and arched like a woman's, and at school the boys would tease him because he looked too pretty. And he would want to fight them, but he wouldn't because he was too afraid. And if he couldn't fight little boys in the schoolyard, then how was he supposed to be a soldier and fight Americans with their planes and bombs and nuclear weapons? It was not possible. But for the time being, he would not think those thoughts. In any war story, but especially a true one, it's difficult to separate what happened from what seemed to happen. What seems to happen happened from what seemed to happen, and what seemed to happen becomes its own happening, and it has to be told that way. Confusing, right? You see, when you look at war, when you look at death, when somebody dies, you look at the body and you look away for a second, but you look back again just to make sure you knew what you saw. But you miss a lot. The picture becomes jumbled, and then when you try to tell the story, it has this surreal seemingness that makes it seem untrue. But that surrealness, that fact is the reason why truth can only be told as it seemed. And with that in mind, I suppose it's time to be blunt. I'm a 43-year-old man, I'm a writer now, and a long time ago I walked through Quang Ngai province as a foot soldier. Almost everything else is invented, but it's not a game, it's a form. Right here, now, as I invent myself, I'm thinking of everything that I want to tell you. I want to tell you this. 20 years ago, I watched a man die on the trail of the village of my key. I did not kill him, but I was present, and my presence is guilt enough. I remember his face, which was not a pretty face, because his chin was in his throat, because his jaw was in his face, and I remember feeling the burden of responsibility and grief. I blamed myself. And rightly so, because I was present. I want you to feel what I felt. I want you to know why I can't feel anymore. I want you to know that story truth is sometimes truer than happening truth. I was once a soldier. There were many real bodies with real faces that I didn't look at because I was young and afraid. And now 20 years later, I'm left with faceless responsibility and faceless grief. Here's the story truth. He was a slim, dead, almost dainty young man of about 20. He lay in the center of a red clay trail in the village of my key. His jaw was in his throat. His one eye was shut. The other was in the shape of a star. I killed him. And what stories do is make things present. I can look at things that I never actually looked at. I can attach faces to things like grief and love and pity and pain and God. I can be brave. I can feel again. Daddy, tell the truth, Kathleen can say. Did you ever kill anybody? And I can honestly say, of course not. Or, I can honestly say, yes.